Alright, cool beans. Hope you guys did enjoy that small montage. I'm Hex. Been a while, I know. But what better way to come back than with the almighty MagBlade. This thing is beyond busted right now. This thing is just ridiculous. I can't believe I'd actually ever have fun open world MagBlading, and honestly I did. This build was just fun. I can't believe what they did in MagBlade. I'm all for it. Kind of touch with some other classes though. Templar needs all the help they can get right now, please. But before we get started, if you guys can hit that subscribe button and like button, it really does help out a lot, and I really do appreciate it. As always, I'll have timestamps all on screen down below if you're looking for anything specific. But without further ado, let's spectral bow our way into the build. So for the sets we do run Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry, I mean, is probably one of the best backbar sets in the entire game for damage and tankiness. 2-piece adds crit, 3-piece adds max mag, 4-piece adds even more crit, let's go. 5-piece, while Battle Spirit is active, critically healing yourself or an ally causes you and up to 11 group members within 12 meters to gain 300 weapon and spell damage and 1650 crit resist for 20 seconds. Each group member affected reduces the weapon and spell damage by 15 and crit resist by 83. So the thing about this is it only reduces it if you proc it near them. So if I'm in a 12 man and I proc this by myself, I'm gonna get the full 300 weapon and spell damage and 1650 crit resist. So for our monsters, we do run Engine Guardian. This is honestly one of the best because on this build I don't have any sustain in my racial passive, so yeah, Engine Guardian is a must on this build with me. I think it's time we update this one piece to some just max health, to be honest. It's about time. 2-piece, I think we all know Engine Guardian. Let's just flatter it to flatter it. When you use an ability that costs resources, you have a 25% chance to summon a Dwemer Augmentation to restore 550 stamina or Magicka or 2248 health to you every half second for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. The most important thing is this thing spawns a Dwemer that the enemy can actually attack. Now you might be saying, well, how does that good? This thing can actually tank meteors and incaps. Yes, if this thing runs in front of you, the enemy could accidentally target it and hit that instead. The amount of meteors and incaps this bad boy has taken is the reason I will never say no to Engine Guardian. Really good for sustain and also really good indirectly for tankiness. So this is a front bar back bar setup. So with the mythic, so we do run training, obviously. 1 piece adds 1454 max health, the most max health you can get from a 1 piece that isn't a monster set. So for our mythic, since I did say this is a front bar back bar setup, so for our mythic, obviously Markin. Markin is one of the most powerful mythics in the entire game. Why? Current bonus, 200 weapon and spell damage and 2314 armor. Just here you go. Don't have to think. There you go. And now for our front bar setup that I've been waiting for the most, my top secret front bar that I've been running is War Maiden. This thing is just cracked, to be honest, especially on MagBlade. 2-piece adds crit, really nice. 3-piece adds max mag, 4-piece adds weapon and spell damage, 5-piece adds 600 weapon and spell damage at full gold quality to your magic damage abilities. This gives some crit and it gives us 600. That is a lot. That actually doesn't show up on our stat sheets, but it does show up on those juicy tooltips. Alright, so the way we run it is I do run a dual wield of War Maiden, double dagger. I really love double dagger and I will praise this. Crit, I feel like, is super slept on in PvP, especially on Nightblade with all those crit modifiers. So on my main hand, I do have a shock damage enchant. It also has the chance to proc minor vulnerability. Do run Nirnhone, obviously the most weapon spell damage you can get for 1 piece on the main hand. Make sure that the Nirnhone is on the main hand. Yes, main hand Nirnhone. It does make a difference. For my offhand, I do run an absorb stamina enchant. When you deal physical damage, you have a chance to proc Sundered, which reduces their physical and spell resist by almost 3k, and also does give a stamina, so why not? We do run Sharpen. Because penetration in PvP is king. Alright, so for our back bar, so at first I did run the Resto, and it wasn't until I switched to the Ice Staff that this build was just broken. Like honestly, Ice Staff is just broken. You could run the Resto staff and run a different alternative. In the clips I did run the Resto for the most part, but once I switched to the Ice Staff, I was not able to go back. This thing is just crazy. I will be explaining to you that more in the skills and why this thing is just broken. I just love the Magicka enchant on there just because it came with it, and I've just been too lazy to change it. You could run any enchant or even any poison if you wanted to. I do run defending. I tried powered, it was just not for me, honestly. Like a wise man once said, it is better to mitigate damage than to heal the damage. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many heals you have. You can have all the heals in the world, but if you get bursted into oblivion, it doesn't matter. You got bursted, your heals can't go up. But if you're able to mitigate the damage before you die, then you have a chance to heal. Alright, so for this set I do run 4-2-1. So 4 light, 2 heavy, 1 medium. So the way we run it is my 2-piece heavy, I do run a heavy head of Engine Guardian and a heavy chest of Trainee. For my 1 medium, I do run a medium shoulder of Engine Guardian. And for my light, I do run a light War Maiden sash. And then a Rallying Cry, hands, legs, and feet. So for the enchants for the body, I do run, if you can't, try to run full tri-stat. And if you can't afford that, just try to stat the big pieces. What I mean by that is head, chest, and legs. And if you can't do that, full max mag will be perfectly just fine. Just adjust your health attributes at the end. Alright, so for my traits, I do run 6 M-Pen, 1 Reinforce. So for my 1 Reinforce, I do run a Reinforced chest of Trainee. And then the rest, I do run M-Pen. You might be saying, why are you running M-Pen with Rallying Cry? Well, because players do have a little thing called crit damage modifiers. So essentially have up to like over 60% critical damage done. So with Rallying Cry and 6-piece M-Pen, we're reducing their critical damage taken by 58%. So yeah, when they do crit us, we're literally taking no bonus damage from crits. Alright, so for my jewelry, I do run a War Maiden neck and ring, and obviously marking ring because marking only comes in a ring. Go figure. And for my enchants, I do go all infused spell damage. You could go anything. If you have weapon damage, you could just go weapon damage. But preferably, if you are making this build from scratch, I recommend going spell damage. Alright, so for the pots we do run, pretty simple. Just simple old tripods. Restore all the pools and gives us recuff to all of them. Alright, so for the food we do run is Orzhkovka's. Orzhkovka's gives us over 4,300 max health. Okay. Gives us a nice little joke of health recovery. But most importantly, increases our Magicka and stamina recovery by 369. Gives us a lot of health and recover of everything. And that is the reason this food is one of the strongest and will always be around forever. Alright, but enough of that. Let's go over the skills now. Alright, so let's go over the skills. So my skills are a little more controversial, so I will be going more over that towards the end. Alright, so for the first skill we do run is Power Extraction. This thing is just ridiculous. Why? Dealing X amount of disease damage. Don't really care about that. The main reason is if an enemy is hit, you gain Major Brutality and Sorcery and Minor Courage. Increases your weapon and spell damage by 20%, and also Minor Courage increases your weapon and spell damage by 215 for 30 seconds. Enemies hit have Minor Courage applied to them, reducing their weapon and spell damage by 215, which I believe it's at 10 seconds at full max strength. Mine is only at 3. So this thing is just used there just simply for the buff. This is literally the reason we run it. My next skill I do run is Mass Hysteria, because honestly, I just love fear. Fear is really good, especially for bursting kids. You fear enemies all around you for 5 seconds. Yes, 5 seconds. That is one of the longest CCs in the entire game. If they don't have the stand to break it, they're gonna die. And if that wasn't enough, enemies also have Major Cowardice for 12 seconds, reducing their weapon and spell damage by 430. Yes, 430. And the thing about this is you actually don't need to fear them. If they're CC immune and you hit fear when they're near you, this will still proc on them. It also reduces their healing done because they have less weapon and spell damage for their heals. Next we do run Camo Hunter, spells enemies, blah blah blah. It's just a skill that we slot just for some juicy passes. While slotted, gain Major Savagery and Prophecy, increasing your weapon and spell crit by 12%. You also get Minor Berserk for 5 seconds after dealing critical damage from an enemy's flank. But if that wasn't enough, we also do benefit from these fighter skill passives. Slayer increases your weapon and spell damage by 3% for each fighter ability slotted, and Banish the Wicked, my personal favorite. You generate 3 ultimate whenever you kill an enemy with the fighter's ability slotted. Next we do run Merciless Resolve, or most commonly referred to as the Nightblade bow, or a bow proc. So basically you put this buff on yourself, which grants you 60 weapon and spell damage for each stack. Each light or heavy attack grants us 1 stack. When you have all 5 procs, this ability will convert into assassins, will allow you to fire a spectral bow for half cost that deals a ridiculous amount of magic damage. Look at that, 20k bow proc. Next we do run Concealed Weapon. This is basically our spammable that just got crazy buff. Flash an enemy dealing X amount of magic damage. If you strike an enemy from behind, you set them off balance. Pretty cool. But the most important part is when you leave Sneak, Invisibility, or Major Expedition ends while in combat, your damage done is increased by 10% for 5 seconds. Yes, you heard that right. And while slotted, you gain Minor Expedition, increases your movement speed by 15%, because why not? Now let's go over our Big Daddy Ultimate. Incapacitating Strike, ravaging enemies with a swift strike dealing X amount of disease damage, and causing them to take 20% more damage from your attacks for 6 seconds. Now you might be saying, you're running War Maiden, why not run Soul Harvest? You could run Soul Harvest so your ulti hits harder, The reason we only run incap is just because incap does give us, if cast with 120 more ultimate, the enemy is stunned for 3 seconds. That is the reason we want to run incap. We want utility over damage. With the other morph, would probably be hitting like 1-2k more damage, cool, but if we get to stun them, we're guaranteed our burst with our bow proc. The other one, if you soul harvest them, they still have a chance to roll dodge or block. When they get incapped and take that stun, that bow's gonna hit, and it's gonna hit hard. Not only that, you also gain Reeve with this morph. Alright, so for our back bar, we do run Racing Against Time, another crazy skill that got crazy buff, gains your Major Expedition for 4 seconds, and Minor Force for 20 seconds. The main reason we run this is because activating this ability removes all snares and mobilizations from you and grants you immunity to them for 4 seconds, because why not? So our next skill that I can't believe I slept on for so long is Elemental Susceptibility. This thing is just something else, to be honest. Send the elements to sap an enemy's defense is inflicted when major breach for 30 seconds, reducing their physical and spell pen by 59 and 48. And also, as a fire song, every 6 seconds while this ability persists, the enemy is afflicted with burning, chilled, and concussed status effect. Yes, you get all that. But the most important thing that most people probably don't know, if you put chilled on an enemy target while you have an ice staff equipped, you also put minor brittle on them for 4 seconds, increasing their enemy's damage taken from crits by 10%. Yes, enemies take 10% more critical damage from this if you put this. And the thing is, when you put this skill, as soon as it hits them, it puts all of them on them. So if you hit this skill and then quickly bar swap into an incap bow, you're deleting somebody. If all that crits, they're getting deleted, they're getting bursted into oblivion. I did run crushing weapons for a bit to try to do this weird combo, which was pretty good, don't get me wrong. But once I went to Elemental Susceptibility, I never went back, and honestly, I can't believe I went that long without using it. Next, we do run Resolve and Vigor. Obviously, this is our burst hot, healing yourself for a ridiculous amount of health over 5 seconds. But most importantly, after casting, you gain Minor Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resist by almost 3k for 20 seconds. And next skill we do run is our Flex Spot, which I prefer to run Refreshing Path. Create a corridor of shadows basically on the ground. Allies in the area get Major Expedition, Minor Endurance, and Minor Intellect, increasing movement speed by 30%, as well as stamina and magic recovery by 15%. The effect also persists for 4 seconds after leaving the path. I run this morph because this morph heals you for X amount of health to you and allies in the area every 1 second. So this is the reason we are able to keep up our Major Expedition, because believe it or not, every time Major Expedition refreshes, it actually removes the old one and puts a new one on you. So that actually will proc our concealed weapon while we're in combat. And our next skill we do run is Healthy Offering. This skill is the bane of my existence. The reason I hate Nightblade so much, especially gank blades. Basically, this is our single target burst heal that gives us a ridiculous amount of health while draining 1080 health from yourself over 3 seconds. This thing is hardly noticeable. This also, after casting, gain Minor Mending for 10 seconds, increasing your healing done by 8%. Just here you go. Yeah, this thing is just crazy, especially on gameplays when they can just spam this skill like 5 times. And for our back bar, we do run Temporal Guard, just used for that simple passive. While slotted, you gain minor protection, reducing your damage taken by 5%. Alright, but enough of that. Let's go over the stat sheets now. Alright, so for our front bar, we do have, with our buffs with the tripod, max mag is at 26.4, max health 31.6k, really nice. Max damage at 17.2k. Fully buffed, our Magicka recovery is at 1554. Health recovery is always a joke to read, and our stamina recovery is at 1448. So our fully proc spell damage in PvP with a Rallying Cry is at 6356, and our weapon crit can go up to 50.8% when we crit. I mean, when we crit right now, look at that, 50.8% weapon crit. We have over a 50% chance of critting. Yeah, that is kind of nuts. Alright, so for our fully proc resistances on our back bar, we do have 29.2k, and our physical resistance at 26.3k. Very, very solid stats. And our crit resist in PvP is 37.29. Yeah, these are some really nice stats we got right here. Alright, so for the race, I am a Dark Elf. We do have Dynamic, increases your max mag and max stam by 1910. The more max mag we have, the harder we hit. And max stam, obviously the more max stam we have, because any build caught without stam, let's just hope there's a keep nearby for you to res that. Resist Flame, increases your flame resist by 4620. We are a stage 3 vampire, so being able to take less damage from the bane of our resistant mag DKs is always real nice, and we'll never say no to that. But most importantly, we do get Ruination, increases your weapon and spell damage by 258. Dark Elves to be really good, if you can, be a Breton. If not, Dark Elf is a really, really strong contender. Khajiit also could work really good with this build too. Would actually hit really hard. So for my Mundus, I do run the Shadow. This thing was kind of just broken to begin with. This thing is really good. We'll be critting really hard because we hit really hard. So if we crit that, we're going to be melting kids. Not only that, it also increases our critical healing. So yeah. You could run the Thief. The Thief actually would be really good for survivability because you'll be able to crit more, especially on your back bar. But yeah, I ran the Shadow. Either one's fine. If you need a little bit more sustain, you could always just run the Atro. Next, we obviously are a stage 3 vampire. Any open world these days should always be a stage 3 vampire. Why? Because of just one simple passive called Undeath, where you're a stage 3 vampire or higher, reduces your damage taken by up to 30% based on your missing health. Alright, but enough of that, let's go over the CP now. Alright, now time for the top secret CP. Just kidding, just regular old CP. For our blue CP, we do run Fighting Finesse, increases your critical damage, critical healing by 8%. Focus Many, increases your healing done with single target heals by up to 10%. Master at Arms, increases your damage done with direct damage attacks by up to 6%. And Ironclad, reduces your damage taken by direct damage attacks by up to 6%. For our red CP, we do run Celerity, increases your movement speed by 10%. In my opinion, the best CP in the entire game. Survival Instincts, while afflicted with a status effect, your core combat skills cost 25% less. Next, we do run Relentlessness. Being stunned or feared causes you to gain major protection for 3 seconds, reduces your damage taken by 10%. And lastly, Pain's Refuge. Reduces your damage taken by 2% for every 2 negative effects active on you up to a maximum of 20%. And for the green CP, doesn't really matter. Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, Gifted Rider, and Seed's Blessing. But enough of that, let's go over the combo rotation. Alright, so for Nightblade, every light attack puts a stack. A fully charged light attack puts 2 stacks. And then one last stack, and there you go. Now we get the bow proc. And this is where our combo comes in hand. So the combo is when you have your bow, when you have your end cap ready and everything, so what you want to do is LE Drain, quickly bar swap, light attack, end cap into a bow. And for the most part, that will delete most kids. And make sure you have all your buffs up, and there you go. You will be deleting most kids with that combo. So there is a small bug with end cap, sadly. So when you do get to 120 ultimate, the ability won't actually work for whatever reason. So right here, watch. Boom. You see that? As much as I click the button, it won't let me cast it. This thing is so frustrating because sometimes you just want the end cap just for the damage and the 20%, just for the debuff of 20% more damage. So yeah, this is the only thing you really have to be wary of. It just won't let you cast it, so the only way, you just have to build a little bit more ultimate. My guess is since vampires do get cost increase, so stage 3 we do get all our abilities cost 8% more. So at 120 it's saying, okay, so it should turn into the end cap. But it's like, okay, so it's got to cost 8% more to stun. But instead of just being default, you know, no stun, it's like, well, we're in that tricky situation where it just does nothing. So Zos, please, if you can fix that, please fix it. That is the most frustrating thing in existence. The amount of times I did not kill somebody because of that bug is just annoying. Because sometimes all I need is just to be able to incap them for the debuff. So yeah, if you can, try to make it a stun. For the most part, if you stun them into that combo, they won't survive. Then let's go over the alternatives. So for the alternatives, there are a few alternatives. For War Maiden, you could swap out War Maiden for Order's Wrath. 2-piece, 3% crit, 3-piece, weapon and spell damage, 4-piece, 3% crit, 5-piece, over 4.5% crit. Also, another 5-piece, because why not? All these sets gotta be bloated these days. Increases your critical damage and critical healing by 8%. The thing about this, it is crafted, so if you wanted to do that. For our back bar, honestly, there is no alternative for Rallying Cry, but if for whatever reason you just don't have it or don't want to farm it, you could also just craft Daedra Trickery. Daedra Trickery is always good and always will be a good set. Alright, so for our monster set, you could run Balorgs. Balorgs is really strong, don't get me wrong. The only thing is, you will really feel it on the sustain. So if you are a Breton and want to run the Atro, you could perfectly go Balorgs and hit really hard. But honestly, the reason we run Energy Guardian is just because this thing can tank hits for you. There's no question about it. You could also run Bloodspawn for resistances and ulti gen. Obviously, that's always good. Bloodspawn has always been good and always will be good. So honestly, MagBlade was just so much fun. For the longest time I wanted to play MagBlade, I just couldn't get the build or couldn't put myself to just get a build ready. But after I got this build ready and going, I was having the time of my life. I could honestly not hop off this build because I was just having so much fun. Hitting those kids with that many bows and all this and that, like the hardest hitting bow I hit on somebody was like a 20k bow, and I don't think I was fully buffed either, so I probably could have hit him even harder. But yeah, MagBlades are just busted right now. Alright, cool beans, but I hope you did enjoy the build video. Honestly, it was really fun just bringing out the MagBlade. I never thought I'd ever see MagBlade be meta, and honestly, this thing is honestly almost to the busted tier. If I had to make a tier list, this thing is almost to the busted tier. Like the video if you liked it, comment your thoughts, experience with the build. Also, anything I might have missed out, what video I should do next. Subscribe for more, but most importantly, stay Zerging. Look, it's a bow.